Well, welcome. This is Professor Loertscher from San Jose State University School of Information, and it's my privilege today to speak with Fran Kompar. Fran, introduce yourself and your district and where your experience, etc.
Well, hello, Dr. Loertscher. It is such a pleasure to be here and speak to you. My name is Fran Kompar, and my title right now is Director of Digital Learning, and I also oversee the library media services for the district in Wilton, Connecticut. I started off actually as a library media specialist in the Greenwich Public Schools, which is in Greenwich, Connecticut. And from there became the coordinator of library media. So I did a lot of work at that point with curriculum and, defining a program, hiring staff, and those sorts of things. I moved about 7 years ago from Greenwich, where I was almost 20 years, to Wilton, which is a much smaller district. It's a district of 4 schools. Rather than 15 schools, which is what I came from. And, I started off as being part of a program that I was doing through a regional service organization, our RESC, Cooperative Educational Services, as a consultant, working with all the library media specialists and really looking at libraries and where we were going. And we basically took a look at the Library Learning Commons model, and we did an entire series over 2 years that stemmed all kinds of topics that had to do with reinventing or reimagining the traditional school library into a Library Learning Commons. So that is really where I am right now, and happy to talk about other parts of my job.
So let's think about the pre-pandemic, pandemic, now, whatever the current thing is. So what do you see as the role that has happened as you worked with the librarians across that time?
Well, this is a great question, because just coming out of the pandemic, and I hope to say that we are really post-pandemic right now, I've been doing a lot of reflecting about what the last couple of years have been like on the end of being, in this role and working with a wonderful staff in Wilton Public Schools. Prior to the pandemic, as I was talking about in terms of my role and working with different schools, in Wilton, we embraced the Learning Commons model. We also, as part of that, we're really following what we call the LIGHTS framework, which defines the role of the library media specialist as having lots of different aspects. So we really talked about getting a plan together, which we did. And the plan included a physical transformation, a virtual transformation, a curriculum transformation. And so we really were about 50% of the way into a plan in converting our spaces. By the time that we got to March of 2020, which was when the pandemic began, we had converted 2 of our elementary schools into actual learning commons physically. That meant that it was student-centered. We had spaces for collaboration, innovation, our maker spaces, places for read-alouds, wonderful furniture, wonderful, flexibility in terms of how we use the spaces, open access, a virtual learning commons so that it was anytime, anywhere. And we did a lot with innovation. We started actually working with the ISTE framework for standards. So we worked with, doing things like coding and lots of different projects. And of course, we had, wonderful spaces to browse, read, study, etc. So we were right in the midst of that. And, going into the pandemic, I've got to say that I have without any hesitation, will tell you, I have the best Library Learning Commons staff around. They are wonderful in every which way.
I know them. I have met all of them, I think now, and they truly are wonderful. And so what happened during the pandemic?
So anyway, going into the pandemic, we had the idea of, I want to say that our library media specialists not only wear many hats, they probably wear all of the hats. So we went into the the pandemic, having had them not only do all of the things I talked about, but they also were overseeing our digital learning one-to-one program prior to the pandemic. And so that put them in a leadership role going into the pandemic. So as of, and I will give you the date because of course these things are really hard to forget at this point. So March 12th was our last fully in-person day prior to a shutdown. At that point, we didn't even know we were going to be shut down. Then we heard it was for 1 week, then at most 2 weeks. So prior to going into that shutdown, our library media specialists took it upon themselves to check out lots and lots of books to the students. So they had books with them for that, small shutdown. And they also, sent out letters to the parents. We made sure that they had devices going home as well. So we got ready. Then after March 12th, we were shut down. We were fully remote. And it happened overnight. And so they became pivotal in the whole being able to deliver instruction online that was all, in person up until then. And we had planned, like I said, for 1 to 2 weeks. We ended up being shut down for 6 months before we even had any in person. And then the following school year, we were remote some of the time, in person, mostly hybrid, which meant that, students were in 2 days, out another 2 days, that sort of thing. So our library media specialists during COVID did everything. They met daily with me on Zoom, of course, and we solved all kinds of problems. We planned for all the things that would make remote learning possible. They had to get devices home. They were doing technical help on a regular basis, whether it was as simple as, passwords or logins to, providing the resources or even like, direct instructing. We did all of the PD and we felt like we were doing PD all of the time. We had to set teachers up for success for delivering instruction online. So we did PD on the different digital tools, on resources, even on protocols for conducting classes online using Zoom. We even
They
had
were central to this whole problem that had developed across the nation, right?
They were really dependent on. They were absolutely at the center of it. Whether you were asking about, like, I'll give you an example. So we didn't have anything physical that was with the kids except for the few books that we sent home. So we had to make sure we had ebooks. We had to get online resources. We had to work with teachers to get things that they may have done in class that was physical paper onto our learning management system. I mean, it went on and on and on.
Yeah.
So, and they were teaching as well. Remember that they're also teaching classes. They teach classes, they collaborate with teachers, but they were also doing all this other stuff, from, like I said, the professional learning to things like creating how-tos on Zoom, or, how to conduct the digital citizenship stuff that went on and on with this.
Wow.
You're right, they were really, really critical to the whole being able to pivot from one thing to another.
And so now what's going on? Now, as you emerge from all that.
So we're really happy that we're back in person. We even at the library operations point of view, we had limited circulation. We had, students had to like be apart from each other when they were even in the space. We had all these different things. That's all gone. So we're back to having a fully operational library learning commons in every school. And
Right.
our staff, our wonderful staff, we've been moving forward already, really looking forward to the fact that we actually finished a curriculum review on digital learning and working on STEM, which is actually being weaved into the library curriculum, at least at K-5. And we're looking at remote learning standards that have just been issued by our state for grades 9 through 12 and the opportunities that will actually come. So one of the things that the staff did this summer coming into this year is through the curriculum review, we identified certain things that we wanted to improve. We have a wonderful research process. We're going to try to make it more consistent. That was one thing. We updated our digital citizenship, and we're looking at courses at the high school in AP research, sports broadcasting, and actual podcasting. So we're really excited about all these things that I think are really important to students and, you know, really society as a whole. This is where things are moving towards, and we're very happy to be part of that.
Well, Fran, since you're at the district level and all of this has gone over, what do you think, how have administrators, how have you worked with administrators both at the district and the school level to even make all of this happen?
So obviously it is critical for district library leaders to work closely with superintendent, principals, all of those folks. And, you know, during the entire pandemic, I worked extremely closely with all of them, the boards of education too, the members presented to the Board of Education in terms of what was happening, you know, how our staff was supporting the efforts. And then, you know, we really need to hammer home with the principals, superintendent, and everybody else, community members, that our vision in the Library Learning Commons supports the district vision. In our district, we have a portrait of the graduate that we've just implemented.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's great. It's our portrait of the graduate basically defines what a student should be able to do at the end of their, you know, K-12 school journey. And I can just give you some of the attributes of our portrait of the graduate, and then you can see how they totally align with our standards, our philosophies, and what library media is all about. So our students at the end of, you know, their senior year going as a graduate, we hope that they've become multi-literate academic scholars, creative designers, socially sensitive citizens, courageous ethical leaders, healthy, balanced human beings, and self-directed expert learners.
Wow.
And these are all attributes that our program can support with instruction, with partnerships, and all of the types of things that, you know, we do really well. I also wanted to mention that I have a very close relationship with all of those members that you talked about, the superintendent, the principals, and I work really closely with them. They're a wonderful group, just like the staff that staffs the Library Learning Commons are.
Well, I've met your superintendent, and he is a brilliant person. He does his homework. He understands. He's just an incredible leader, and just in fact, he was awarded something. Would you like to say what he?
Yes, I'm so pleased, and I can't agree with you more. Dr. Kevin Smith, our superintendent, was the winner of the American Association for School Librarian Administrator of the Year, which means that he's been recognized at a national level for his support and you know, going above and beyond in terms of like moving the program forward. And you know, one thing I've got to say is that it's so important to have that kind of support. I need to do lots of work to bring people together, but when you have that kind of support with you,
That's right.
it makes it all really much more possible.
Exactly. So if you're giving advice to superintendents and principals, boards around the country that would really like to turn their quote library programs around to make them very exciting places, how would they proceed?
So, you know, one of the things that I have been just so honored to work with you, David, is in some of these conferences that we've gone to, like EduCon and, you know, a few others where we've basically invited everyone to look at others who have gone through the journey. So if
Right.
you're interested in, you know, pursuing transforming your library into a library learning commons in terms of philosophy, the physical aspect of it, and you know, all aspects of it, then, you know, yes, read the book, read the articles, but see it. Basically, you know, if you can't get there, look at it online and see what others are doing, hear about what people are doing and what works and what doesn't, because you'll be able to pick the things that will work in your district or in your school, and move it forward, because I think we all learn from each other. I can take an idea that I've seen somewhere and implement it just in a different kind of way in my environment. And, you know, that's, I think that in terms of advice, like just learn from others.
That's great. But also, I've seen that you have an ability to help administrators choose the building level librarians. Talk about that for just a second.
So there's several things that we've done that I think has been really helpful in that regard. One of the things I know that folks out there that are, you know, have been through teacher process or even maybe being library media specialists, you know, there's an evaluation plan. I worked with my my leadership group in Wilton to develop a rubric that's specifically tailor-made to library media specialists. So we evaluate them. So there's an understanding of what a library media specialist should be doing, because oftentimes we get thrown in the same bucket as, you know, every teacher, and we do things differently. There's lots of other things in our role that's very different. So I think there's an education that has to happen. So that's one of the things. I work really closely with our building principals when they hire. You know, I'm on the committee with them, and we, you know, develop questions based on the philosophy of the Learning Commons. And we bring it back to that role so that it's very clear in how we hire. And we've been successful also partly because in Connecticut, we've had the ability to hire folks that have been teachers, have been in a classroom, but then have gone through a program. It's an alternate route to certification, which is a fast track to becoming a library media specialist that's fully certified in Connecticut. That then takes like the best of the best in terms of teachers who have all of that ability to instruct well, and then puts it on top of that, all of the knowledge you need and the skills you need to be a great library media specialist. And I have to tell you that lots and lots of our staff members also came out of that program, and they're just wonderful. I mean, I can't say enough for them. And I will, you know, toot their horn anytime I get a chance to.
Well, I hope folks will keep in contact with you because you are a model district person. Fran, what's the real bottom line to all of this?
So I have said during this entire time that we went through the pandemic that one of the little known facts is how much behind the scenes work that our library media specialists did to get us through it. And as much as we've all said, you know, it has been so difficult for every educator, I believe library media specialists are the unsung heroes of the pandemic learning, as I call it, times, because they were the ones that had to pivot, had to teach, had to be there as tech support, as resource support, as every kind of support. And, you know, because library media specialists are very humble and quiet in all they do, it may not be something that is publicized in the media, et cetera, but I will just be out here to say that they are certainly the unsung heroes.
Thank you so very much. This has been a great interview, and I hope people really take advantage of the wisdom that you've talked about today. Thank you again, Fran.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.